Hello and welcome back to another Blu-ray overview video for a Eureka release. This one is The Champions, starring Yoon Bu. 1983, I believe. Yes, directed by Brandy Yoon. The Yoon clan worked on this. Very famous family of brothers who got into the film industry through their father, Simon Yoon, and Yoon Soo-ting. And, they just, most of them had a tremendous ability to create great action movies, from the choreography to the direction and everything else that goes into it. And this is another great example of that, but also an example of the way they were able to use their skills and apply it to a film that was quite different from a lot of the films that were being made around that time, where 1983, that's when a lot of like the kind of more fantastical kind of Hong Kong films were coming in, kind of period films, but with like lots of wire work and special effects and kind of fantasy, supernatural elements and things. But The Champions, which is kind of set in a vague time period, really, I never really thought about it, but from what people kept theorizing in the commentaries on this release, is it set in the 60s? Is it set in the, in the turn of the century? They weren't quite sure. But I am not a big fan of football. So for me, football was an interesting one when growing up in the UK as a teenager. It was the big push for, I think, the 2002 World Cup, where England were getting further and further. And I think it was the quarter-final against Brazil. And actually, I mean, I'm from Wales, so it wasn't quite our country, so to speak, but we still dropped everything in school that morning and went into the big assembly hall, and they projected that match onto the screen around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And I just remember feeling gutted when they lost, even though, again, it's funny how it works that way with the UK and England, Wales, Scotland and stuff, because when you have a guy like Andy Murray, who's this amazing tennis player from Scotland, when he has all this success, the UK is like, British Andy Murray, whereas if he would fail and have a terrible career, it'd be like, well, the Scotsman didn't do quite well this week, you know what I mean? Like, so we all kind of are at each other's throats, England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, but when it comes to like our own successes, we're like, oh yeah, well they're with us. So anyway, so football for me, I went mad for it in like the early 2000s when I was a teenager, and that was it. Before that, I had no interest. After that, and up until now, I've had no interest. When I was working in London, a guy came up to me. He's like, oh, and it was around the 2018 World Cup. He's like, oh, did you see the results from today? And I was like, no, I don't follow it. And he's like, you don't follow it? I was like, no. I was like, I don't like football. And he went, what's wrong with you? And it wasn't like a jokey kind of like, oh, what's wrong with you? It was like, what's wrong with you? Like he wanted to know what was actually wrong with me, that I didn't watch football. I was like, well, I'm into films. So here we have a film about football, and it really isn't a football film in that sense, but the football scenes are so enjoyable. Like the way that the choreography, it doesn't feel too outlandish and ridiculous. It's still kind of pushing the boundaries of the rules of football, I think, but it's enough that it's still super entertaining. And Yoon Bu is one amazing talent, often gets overshadowed by Samo and Jackie, I think, because they are kind of in a league of their own. But Yoon Bu is still, there's something about him. He reminds me a lot of my friend Chris from CM42 TV, the Good Bit podcast. I don't know, there's just a kindness in his face, but he's also a badass. Not that Chris is, he maybe, I don't know, but there's something about that. It sounds bad, but there's like a geekiness about the way he looks. But also you just inherently feel like he's a good person. I don't know if he's played many villains in his career, but he's just so likable and a great lead in this film. And he kind of just falls into this whole kind of plot where he ends up being on a football team. At the beginning of the film, he's taking part in this kind of local traditional kind of competition, and he ends up kicking a guy who falls on his balls on like a log and dies. Death by bollocks. And so he has to leave his hometown and go to Hong Kong, presumably. And his kind of, I think it's his father or his uncle, I think. His uncle, played by Eddie Ko, is like, you need to leave, you need to get out of here now. So he leaves, but he's so adept with his feet that he's spotted by a local guy who I believe was an actual footballer, played by, what is his name? Chung Kwok Kung. He's awesome too, and he has a similar kind of likability to him, and they form like a nice friendship that was really fun and enjoyable to watch, like a nice kind of buddy movie in a way. Not fully though, it's not that they become firm friends, but he sees the potential in this guy to kind of help them with their football because they're kind of a football crazy gang. The translation of the Cantonese title, I believe, is football crazy. I'm not sure if would it be Cantonese at this point. Yes, it was Cantonese because there are many different audio versions of this or audio tracks available for this. There is the original Cantonese, there is an alternate Cantonese track, and then there's also the Japanese track, which was prepared for Japanese release. It's not in Japanese, it's in Cantonese, but there are different musical cues in the film, which are quite interesting actually. And then also the end theme song is sung by Yuen Bu in English for the Japanese release of the film. Figure that one out, but it's a lot of fun. Even in the opening credits, actually, it's the English version of "The Champions." I'm not going to sing it, but it's a really fun theme song. It reminds me a bit of "Holding Out for a Hero." I was like, man, they cribbed some notes from "Holding Out for a Hero" on this one, and I looked it up and it came out a year afterwards, so they beat "Holding Out for a Hero" to the punch. So the writers of that song must have been like, oh, that obscure Hong Kong football comedy we watched. Yeah, let's take notes from that song. I mean, it's not that similar, but just the vibe of it and the tempo, I guess, made me think of "Holding Out for a Hero." Dick Way is the football king in this. That is his literal character name, and he is so much fun. He is an amazing villain. He's a villain who isn't like a complete rat bastard. But he's smarmy and he's smug. And, I'm used to seeing Dick Way in kind of fairly serious, hard-hitting roles. He's just really fun in this. I don't know. There's just a way that he plays it that just makes him so enjoyable to dislike. But you also, anytime he's on screen, it's really good because I love the kind of rivalry that sprouts up between him and Yuen Bu's character, and also Chung Kwa Kung as well. So there's a great sequence in a bar where they're all out together, and on one side of the room is Dick Way and the women he has on his shoulder, and then you have our two heroes, and they're kind of entertaining some women too. And at first it becomes a literal kind of dick measuring contest where it's like they keep pulling out bigger cigars. And they keep pulling out like more expensive jewelry and stuff, and eventually it's like they all take to the dance floor, and you have Yuen Bu with a woman, Dick Way with a woman, and they're dancing on the dance floor, and they turn the dance into a fight, but they're doing it to the point where the women aren't noticing that they're fighting. It's fucking brilliant. I was in hysterics because it's funny, but it's also super impressive, and the choreography is just so fun and inventive. Take a shot for every time I say the word inventive when talking about this film and any other Hong Kong film that I talk about, honestly. So Brandy Yuen directs this. He has a fun cameo in this. There's a guy who kind of crawls over a crowd of people, literally like a little spider, to make a bet on one of the football games. And I liked how it didn't build towards like a football match that was about winning the annual cup or anything. It was a personal dispute, and they were going to settle it by having a football match, and it was more of a kind of, a personal feud that kind of settled things. There's a really brutal fight scene out of nowhere in this, actually, that feels like it's out of Police Story or something. Like a really brutal fight scene where the rest of the film is not quite... and it's interesting because this is rated 18, so they haven't resubmitted this to the BBFC, I guess, because it was rated back in the 80s, and it's not an 18 rated film at all. It's fairly tame. Moon Lee stars in this very briefly. I wish she was in it more because she brought a nice feminine quality to the characters, but then she just disappears for large sections of the movie, unfortunately. Got a really nice slipcover. It kind of conveys some of the fun of the film, I feel like, with the colors and the design. And I do feel like his head is really way too big for the body, though. That looks like it's a bit of a... When you look closely, it comes off a bit weird. But I just love the color design of everything on this release. It's really nice. So really cool slipcover. We have two commentaries, one by Mike Leader, Anna Venema, one by Frank Jiang, as he joined by FJ DeSanto. Really enjoyed both of them as always, and I love how both tracks weighed in on the football versus soccer debate. And so even Frank Jiang was like, fuck soccer, it's football. And and again in the other one equally, they're just like, it's don't use the soccer word, it's football, damn it. So that was kind of fun. But they talk a lot about everyone who's in the movie and their careers and influences of like Shaolin. Is it Shaolin soccer with Stephen Chow? I think it is. Frank and FJ DeSanto are just like, oh, this is like, this is where Stephen Chow got a lot of stuff. Like, this is the shot that he paid tribute to in Shaolin Soccer. And then you get to Mike Leader and Anna Venema, and Mike is just like, nah, there's no influence on Shaolin Soccer from this. So I like how always get these conflicting kind of opinions, and also their thoughts on when the film is set in terms of the time period. But two immensely enjoyable tracks. I might do. I hate to keep promising it because sometimes I just don't get the time. But I have written about 4 pages of notes in this release, so I might do a full in-depth kind of special clip-laden review. But for now, I just want to kind of gush about this because it was just so fun. This is one I'll watch again and again because it's just, I feel like it was just so brilliantly paced as well. It's not action packed the whole way through, but like when the fight scenes come, they're excellent. But it's about the characters and the intricacies of of where the story is going, and again, particularly with Dick Way's Football King character, and the kind of, and it's a lot to do with also kind of fixed betting. Is that even a term? I don't think it is. But the game was being fixed for the purposes of kind of illicit gambling, and so it comes down to the morality of it. Like, does Yuen Bu want to be involved in a situation where he has to throw a game to earn lots of money and stuff like that? And so I like all that stuff. It's just a good story, super fun, super enjoyable. There's also a piece with James Mudge, who talks about football films and kind of the state of the Hong Kong film industry at the time, and how something like a football comedy was certainly different, and how that ties into, of course, the people involved, from the stars to the Yuen clan themselves. Nice original poster here. I switched this one out already. I really like it when they do that. It's a 2K restoration as well. The transfer I thought was excellent, and get a nice booklet. I even love like little details like this. So you have the disc, which is like in the form of a ball, and that literally is the style of the footballs that you see in the movie. But when I got this, I don't know if I can simulate it now. Let's see if I can. Yeah, here you go. I was like, oh damn, the disc is loose. But no, along with the booklet, you have, and they didn't even announce this or mention it at all when they put this Blu-ray out. It includes 2 little trading cards, football trading cards of our 2 main characters here. So we've got the Football King, Dick Way, and then Yuen Bu. That's such a cool little detail. I thought that was awesome. Like, such a fun little extra to put in the Blu-ray. Like, really, really cool. So Lee Tong is Yuen Bu's character. I feel like I'm doing the Guess Who cards now, and then King. I just love how his name is the Football King. Anyway, so yeah, what a great package, and what a great film. Like, I keep saying it. I know I keep saying it, but like, this is something I never heard of before, and it was just so fun. Like, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The Champions, cannot recommend it enough. An absolute blast of a movie, a great Blu-ray with loads of great features on it, different audio tracks. Fantastic. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you've seen it, let me know. And have you seen Shaolin Soccer? I believe that's what it's called. There's Kung Fu Hustle and Shaolin Soccer. Those are 2 films that kind of got more mainstream attention in the 2000s, if I remember correctly, because I remember people talking about it. But I've not seen them. So if you have seen them, are they any good? And what do you think of them? Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.